She has no pulse. The paramedic's voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. I was staring at the ceiling lights above the stove, too dizzy to move, barely able to breathe. My body felt heavy, numb. Somewhere near my feet, metal clattered against tile as someone dropped a medical case open. Then my father shouted, "Get your hands off her." His grip snapped around the paramedic's wrist so hard the man stumbled sideways. I heard another voice immediately rise over the chaos. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for updates. Sir, step back. No, my father barked, you don't know her condition. I tried to turn my head. My vision blurred in and out, but I could still see Daniel Freeman standing between me and the paramedics like they were the threat. Not me lying unconscious on the kitchen floor. Not the fact that I couldn't feel my fingers. One paramedic reached toward the pocket of my hoodie, possible overdose. She's allergic to half those drugs, my father interrupted instantly. I already gave her the approved medication. Approved medication. The words echoed strangely in my head. Because I hadn't taken anything. The last thing I remembered clearly was my father handing me tea, while I sat at the kitchen table waiting for a phone call. A phone call he didn't know about. The taller paramedic knelt beside me again, shining a light into my eyes. "Pinpoint pupils," he muttered. "What prescriptions is she on?" My father answered too fast. Every dosage, every medication, no hesitation. Like he'd rehearsed it. I tried lifting my arm. My hand barely twitched against the floor. The paramedic noticed and leaned closer. "Hey," he said carefully. "Stella, can you hear me?" I reached weakly toward his sleeve. Before I could touch him, my father grabbed my wrist and yanked my arm back against the tile. Pain shot through my shoulder. "Don't upset her," he snapped. That was when the second paramedic stepped directly between us. His voice dropped low and sharp. "Sir, let go now." For the first time that night, my father hesitated. "Not scared for me. Scared of them." The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, tighter. The paramedics exchanged a quick look I couldn't fully read, but something had changed. They weren't treating this like a normal medical call anymore. The taller paramedic stood slowly and glanced toward the hallway leading to the bathroom. Then he looked straight at my father. "Why," he asked quietly, "does your daughter have 2 different prescription labels under her sink?" My father's face went completely still. And in that moment, even through the fog in my head, I knew something had just gone very wrong. The first thing I heard when I woke up was the steady beep of a heart monitor. The second was my father's voice. "She gets confused after episodes like this," Daniel said softly. "It's important nobody alarms her." I opened my eyes slowly. White ceiling tiles, IV line in my arm, hospital room. My father sat beside the bed in a pressed grey sweater, hands folded calmly in his lap like he'd been waiting there all night. The moment he noticed I was awake, his expression softened into concern. "There she is," he said warmly. A nurse near the doorway smiled in relief. "Good morning, Stella, how are you feeling?" Before I could answer, my father stood and adjusted my blanket carefully around my shoulders. "She's exhausted," he said for me. "Stress affects her memory." The nurse nodded sympathetically and checked the monitor. "Doctor should be in shortly." As soon as the door shut behind her, the room changed. My father's smile disappeared instantly. "You are not to talk about last night," he said quietly. I stared at him. He leaned closer, lowering his voice even further. "You were disoriented. You frightened yourself, that's all." My throat felt dry. "You grabbed me." His jaw tightened. "Because you were fighting treatment." I looked down and saw dark bruising already forming around my wrist. "You faint constantly, Stella," he continued. "You forget things, doctors know that. Don't make this worse by embarrassing yourself." My stomach twisted. For years, that was how every conversation ended. "You're confused. You imagined it. You're sick." After my mother died, my father pulled me out of school after what he called health incidents. Friends stopped calling. Church members sent sympathy cards about my condition. Every doctor visit became another list of medications I barely understood. But before I collapsed last night, I'd been waiting for someone. A lawyer. One connected to my mother's estate. My father still didn't know I'd contacted him. Daniel noticed me staring at the bruises on my arm. He gently pulled the blanket higher, covering them. "If they think you're unstable," he whispered, "they'll keep you here longer." A soft knock interrupted him. A nurse entered carrying fresh water and medication cups. As she adjusted my IV, something small brushed against my hand beneath the blanket. A folded note. She didn't look at me as she walked out. My pulse quickened. I opened it carefully after the door shut. "The paramedic wants to speak to you privately." For a second, I just stared at the words. Someone believed me. Or at least didn't believe him. Outside the room, voices suddenly rose in the hallway. "That won't be necessary," my father said sharply. "Sir, the attending physician. I'm requesting immediate transfer to a private facility." I sat upright slightly as footsteps approached the doorway again. Then I heard another voice whisper hurriedly near the nurse's station. "Security, been notified because the paramedic filed a mandatory report." My father went completely silent. By the time they moved me out for additional scans, the entire nurse's station sounded like a courtroom. "This accusation is outrageous." My father's voice carried across the hospital floor so loudly that people in the waiting area had started turning in their chairs. "I want the name of the paramedic who filed that report," he demanded. "Immediately." A hospital administrator tried to calm him down. "Mr. Freeman, protocol requires." "My daughter has psychiatric episodes," he snapped. "She has memory distortion during medical events, and now one of your employees is spreading defamatory claims." I sat frozen in the wheelchair beside the wall, while nurses avoided eye contact. Then the paramedic from the kitchen stepped forward. Same dark uniform, same steady voice. "She didn't present like a psychiatric patient," he said. "Her medication levels were inconsistent with the prescriptions listed at the scene." My father laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You're an EMT, not her physician." "Paramedic," the man corrected evenly. "And somebody accessed her prescription portal 3 weeks ago to increase dosage amounts." Silence hit the hallway. My father answered immediately. "I manage her medications because she forgets doses." The paramedic held his gaze. "Electronically changing controlled prescriptions without physician authorization is not routine caregiving." Several nurses exchanged uneasy looks. For the first time in my life, I watched adults hesitate before automatically believing my father. Then the elevator doors opened. A woman hurried across the lobby toward us, breathing hard, coat half buttoned. "Aunt Rebecca," I whispered. My father went pale. Rebecca stopped beside my wheelchair and grabbed my hand tightly. "Are you okay?" "How did you even know I was here?" my father demanded. "The emergency contact alert," she shot back. "The one you forgot to remove after blocking the rest of Mom's family." People nearby were openly staring now. The administrator stepped closer. "Ma'am, are you family?" Rebecca looked directly at him. "I'm Stella's maternal aunt, and before anyone signs discharge papers, you should know her mother left a protected medical trust that expires when Stella turns 18. The hallway went dead quiet. My father's expression changed instantly. "Not grief. Not fear for me. Calculation." The paramedic slowly looked back toward him. Rebecca continued, louder now. "Daniel controls every payment tied to Stella's ongoing medical dependency." I saw the exact moment suspicion spread through the staff around us. My father took a step forward. "You've been poisoning her against me for years." "No," Rebecca said coldly. "You handled that yourself." My chest tightened as everyone looked at me. For years, nobody had asked what I thought. The words came out shaky but clear. "I never asked for those medication changes." My father moved toward me immediately. "Stella." A security guard stepped between us. "Sir, stay back." The paramedic opened my chart slowly, eyes scanning the records. Then he looked up. "Then somebody's been increasing her dosage," he said, "for almost 3 years." 2 detectives were already inside our house by the next morning. Rebecca held her phone out toward me from the hospital chair beside my bed, showing a live security feed from the Freeman house. Officers moved through the kitchen wearing gloves, while another investigator photographed rows of medication bottles lined across the counter. The same counter where I'd collapsed. One detective lifted a bottle toward the camera. Another immediately shook his head and pointed at the label. Even through the grainy video, I could see pieces of paper peeling unevenly from the prescription sticker underneath. "They're finding altered labels," Rebecca said quietly. My stomach turned. Another tray of medications appeared from the pantry. Refill dates overlapped impossibly. Some bottles carried different pharmacy names for the exact same prescriptions. Then one investigator opened a tea tin. He stopped. Even through the muted feed, I saw him call someone over immediately. Rebecca lowered the phone slowly. "They think sedatives were mixed into non-prescription items." Suddenly, years of my life started rearranging themselves in my head. The exhaustion after meals. The dizzy spells. The blackouts my father always blamed on stress. The mornings I couldn't remember entire conversations. None of it had felt real enough to question before. Now every memory felt poisoned. Rebecca reached over and squeezed my hand. "Your mother's family tried contacting you after the funeral," she said carefully. "Daniel blocked every attempt." I stared at her. "What?" "He told everyone your condition was getting worse, said outside stress could trigger episodes." A knock interrupted us as the paramedic entered the room with a hospital investigator behind him. The investigator spoke gently. "Toxicology confirmed respiratory level sedation in your system last night." Respiratory level. Enough to stop breathing. I looked toward the window, suddenly cold. My father had almost killed me. "He claims it was an accidental dosage error," the investigator continued. The paramedic's expression hardened immediately. "That's not accurate," he said. "At the scene, he delayed CPR, argued against naloxone administration, and repeatedly tried preventing transport." The room fell silent. Every sentence made the truth uglier. Rebecca's phone buzzed again. She glanced down at the live feed. "They're in his office now." She turned the screen toward me. Officers pulled files from drawers while another detective photographed stacks of paperwork. One box after another carried labels for treatment programs I'd never attended. "Investigators found withdrawals from the trust," Rebecca said quietly. "Thousands spent on specialized care facilities that don't exist." My chest tightened harder with every word. Then an officer stopped beside a locked metal box hidden beneath the desk. He carried it out carefully while another detective forced the latch open. Rebecca's voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Your mother kept records," she said. "She knew something was wrong before she died." The lid opened. Inside were notebooks. Dozens of them. An officer lifted one slowly and flipped it open. Every page contained handwritten schedules. Dates. Dosages. Reactions. My name written across the top of each one. 3 days later, detectives finally explained everything to me without lowering their voices or talking around me like I was too fragile to understand. After my mother died from cancer, my father gained full legal control over my care and the medical trust she had left behind. The trust released monthly oversight payments as long as I remained classified as medically dependent. At first, there had been legitimate treatment. But as I got older, healthier, and more independent, the payments started shrinking. That was when the medication changes began. He switched clinics repeatedly whenever physicians questioned the dosages, the investigator told me. He exaggerated symptoms, reported false episodes, and manipulated your records to maintain long-term dependency status. I sat motionless in the hospital chair, while file after file spread across the table in front of me. Prescription histories. Forged refill requests. Billing records from treatment centers that didn't exist. Then came the part that made my stomach drop. The tea. Lab testing confirmed crushed sedatives had been mixed into it the night I collapsed. Rebecca admitted she had secretly arranged a meeting with a lawyer that evening so I could begin filing for emancipation before my 18th birthday. My father found out, and instead of letting me leave that house, he drugged me heavily enough to stop me from getting there. I finally understood why he panicked when the paramedics touched me. He wasn't afraid I would die. He was afraid they would discover why. That realization broke something in me. I cried harder than I had at my mother's funeral, not because I missed my father, because for years I truly believed I was broken. The confusion, the exhaustion, the memory gaps. He had built my entire identity around being sick. A quiet knock interrupted the room. The paramedic stepped inside, holding a paper coffee cup awkwardly in one hand. "Thought you might want real hot chocolate instead of hospital coffee," he said. I almost laughed for the first time in days. He sat carefully across from me. "I knew something was wrong the second your father stopped us from treating you." I looked up at him. "Most parents beg us to save their kid," he said quietly. He was trying to control the scene. 2 weeks later, Daniel Freeman was arrested on charges including medical abuse, fraud, prescription tampering, and reckless endangerment. The fallout spread fast. His church removed him from leadership within days. Local news stations uncovered years of charity fundraisers centered around my declining condition. Families who had donated money demanded investigations after detectives traced funds into fake treatment programs tied directly to my father. Every account connected to the trust was frozen. Former doctors began reviewing old records. And from jail, my father kept sending letters. I never opened them. Rebecca became my temporary guardian until I turned 18. The doctors slowly started tapering me off medications I had apparently never needed in the first place. The physical recovery was harder than I expected. Some days I could barely walk down the hallway without shaking. My body had spent years adapting to heavy sedation. Physical therapy became part of my routine almost immediately. But little by little, things changed. I started attending actual classes, instead of sitting alone in my room doing homeschool packets. I walked outside by myself without someone tracking my medication schedule. I slept through the night without being checked on every hour. For the first time in years, my life felt quiet. Normal. Months later, Rebecca took me back to the house while movers cleared out the last furniture before the property was sold. I stood alone in the kitchen staring at the exact spot where I'd collapsed. The tile looked smaller somehow. Less terrifying. But I could still hear it clearly in my head. "She has no pulse." And louder than that, "Get your hands off her." I finally understood what terrified me most about that night. The person who should have fought hardest to save me was the one trying to stop them. And the day my father tried to stop them from saving me was the day everyone finally saw who he really was.